In the history of Roblox, there are names that make longtime players feel an uneasy chill. These are not the names of popular YouTubers or creators of multi-million visit games. These are the names of those who existed in the shadows, right on the edge between game code and digital madness. And the most infamous of them is NOLI. If you experienced the era of 2007 to 2009, you remember what Roblox was like back then. It was a time of bright colors, blocky shapes, and a sense of endless possibilities. But it was also during that time, among the sunny maps like Crossroads and Chaos Canyon, that something dark began to take form. The story of NOLI is not just a tale about a hacker. It is a chronicle of how the void itself found a shape. Chapter 1. The Curse of the Void Star. It all began in August 2007, during an event organized by John Shedletsky himself. Players were hunting for mysterious items, and the reward for completing the challenge became an accessory that is now considered legendary: the Void Star. A massive black star-shaped hat with a faint purple glow. For most players, it was just a rare trophy. But for one player, it became a gateway. The first mentions of a user named NOLI date back to November 2009, although the roots of his presence go even deeper. The legend says that NOLI didn't just obtain the item, he became it. The moment he equipped the Void Star, his avatar began to change. His skin turned unnaturally black, absorbing all light around it. It was said that if you approached him in-game, the colors of your own character would begin to fade, and your screen would be covered with faint static interference. Chapter 2. The First Incidents. Back in those days, Roblox servers were unstable, but what happened around NOLI was nothing like normal lag. Witnesses described it as an infection. When NOLI joined a server, within minutes the physics of the game would start breaking. The bricks that made up the world would lose their properties. They could freeze mid-air or begin falling endlessly through the map, dragging players down with them. But the most terrifying part wasn't the destruction of the environment. It was what NOLI did to people. No one ever saw normal messages from him in the chat. Instead, he typed in a strange mix of Latin, binary code, and distorted English. Those who tried to communicate with him noticed something even more disturbing. Their accounts began to behave on their own. Their characters would start walking toward NOLI, kneel in front of him, and within seconds, the game would crash with a critical error. When those players tried to rejoin, they discovered that their profiles had changed. Some lost all their items. Others found a single phrase written in their profile description. And so darkness descends. Chapter 3. Moderation and Helplessness. Rumors about the Black God quickly spread across the forums. Players created hundreds of threads, demanding that NOLI be banned. But this is where the story shifts from a typical hacker tale into something much more disturbing. Roblox moderators, who were usually quick and strict, remained completely silent in NOLI's case. One former administrator, whose name of course remains unknown, later allegedly admitted under anonymity. We saw his account in the database, but every time we tried to press terminate, the system returned a 404 error. His profile both existed and didn't exist at the same time. He was like a tumor in the site's code, something you couldn't remove without destroying the entire system. At some point, NOLI's profile did disappear. But instead of the message, "This account has been terminated," visitors saw an empty page with a question mark where the avatar should be. The last online date was replaced with symbols that constantly changed. NOLI didn't leave. He simply moved to another level of existence. He stopped being a player and became a myth, around which one of the most disturbing cults in Roblox history began to form: the Void Cult. When NOLI's official account turned into a digital ghost with a question mark instead of an avatar, The Roblox community split apart. Regular players began avoiding empty servers, but there were others who saw the disappearance of the Lord of the Void not as an end, but as the beginning of a new era. That's how the Void Cult was born, the largest and most organized group in the history of Roblox myths. Chapter 4: The Awakening of the Cult. These were not ordinary fans. NOLI's followers behaved like a real sect. They chose the oldest, half-forgotten places such as the Tempest or Athernitz and turned them into places of pilgrimage. If you accidentally joined one of these places at night, you could witness something disturbing. Dozens of players dressed entirely in black, standing completely still in a perfect circle. They didn't jump, didn't run, and didn't communicate normally. The chat was filled with endless lines of binary code or strange abbreviations. The most famous of them was Sway Judy NOLI. For years, myth researchers tried to decode it until they reached a disturbing conclusion. It wasn't just random letters, but an acronym made up of the names of 5 high-ranking followers who supposedly shared control over NOLI's legacy. It was said that these people were not just players, but former developers or hackers who had discovered a back door in Roblox's code, left behind by NOLI himself. They claimed they could hear his voice within system errors. Chapter 5: The 16th Day Incident. One of the darkest chapters in NOLI's story was connected to the events that occurred on the 16th of every month. Among the cult, this was known as the Day of Descent. On those days, the official Roblox forums would descend into chaos. A user named Sway Judy NOLI, or variations of it, would post threads with titles like, "And so darkness descends," or "The Void welcomes you." Inside these threads, there was no text, only strange symbols that caused visual glitches in the browser when scrolling. But the most disturbing effects happened to those who decided to reply. Players reported that after commenting, their direct messages would be flooded with meaningless symbols sent from banned accounts. A few hours later, their own avatars would begin to turn black. It was a psychological attack. The cult created the illusion that NOLI was marking his victims. Moderators deleted these threads within minutes, but they kept reappearing, as if they were not created by a person, but by a self-executing script embedded deep within the site's core. Chapter 6: The Secret of the Banlands. So where was NOLI during all of this? According to the cult's mythology, he was never deleted. He was exiled to the Banlands. In Roblox creepypastas, this place is described as a gray, silent dimension where all deleted data ends up. Old versions of maps, forgotten scripts, and banned users. The cult believed that the Banlands were not just a digital graveyard, but an entire dimension, and that NOLI had become its ruler. In their places, they built massive structures known as the Gates of the Void, hoping that if enough players made a sacrifice at the same time, such as deleting their accounts or performing specific actions, the gates would open, and NOLI would return to consume the main Roblox world. Chapter 7: Mirror Accounts and the Question Mark. The most discussed anomaly of that time became known as the phenomenon of mirror accounts. Players began discovering profiles that perfectly copied their own. The same friends, the same badges, the same clothing. But there was one difference. The registration date was set to January 1st, 1970, the Unix epoch, a common default error in programming, and the friend list contained only one user, NOLI. If you tried to message one of these duplicates, the game would instantly crash. A rumor began to spread that if your mirror account equipped the Void Star, your real account would be erased from existence. The fear of the black player became so real that in 2011 to 2012, thousands of users started changing their passwords and removing black clothing from their avatars, just to avoid attracting the attention of the Lord of the Void. The cult continued to grow in the shadows, creating legends about the 5 fallen who had sacrificed themselves for NOLI. But the world had no idea that after 10 years of silence, the Void would find a way to return through modern horror games. Years passed. Roblox transformed from a modest building platform into a global metaverse. Old forums were shut down, classic places were deleted, and names like NOLI seemed to turn into dust settled deep within digital archives. But in the world of code, nothing ever truly disappears. It simply waits for the moment when the system begins to fail. Chapter 8: Awakening in Crossroads Hangout. In 2024, a major discovery shook the myth-hunting community. In the game A Crossroads Hangout Game, a project recreating the atmosphere of old Roblox, players found hidden files and triggers pointing to the return of the Lord of the Void. This wasn't just a fan-made reference. It was a fully developed storyline, officially recognized as part of the platform's modern mythology. During one of the endings, when the sky above the classic Crossroads map suddenly turned black, players saw a familiar silhouette. But this was no longer the blocky figure from 2009. It was a tall, distorted entity, radiating pure darkness. NOLI had returned, and he was not alone. According to the game's lore, another infamous entity, Smile, managed to breach the protective barriers of the Badlands. What was once considered just a metaphor for deleted accounts was now revealed as something far worse. A hidden backstage of Roblox itself. A prison where all errors, corrupted scripts, and non-existent users were locked away. Smile freed NOLI, calling him his first and greatest creation. Now the Void no longer waits in forgotten forums. It moves freely across servers, traveling between games. Chapter 9: Legacy and Pressure and Urban Shade. The most unexpected and large-scale reappearance of NOLI in modern culture came through the game Pressure by Urban Shade. Here, the legend of NOLI was reimagined as corporate horror, similar to SCP-style storytelling. Within the game's lore, there is a secret division known as NOST, likely short for nostalgia. This elite department studies and contains anomalies from the Badlands, and leading it is none other than NOLI himself. But here, he is no longer a hacker. He is something higher, an entity that made a deal with the corporation. Players can discover the Necrobloxicon, a book written by NOLI in a forgotten language. It describes how the Lord of the Void was resurrected from nothingness by a figure known as Mr. Shade. This transforms NOLI from a simple network ghost into a full multiverse-level antagonist within Roblox, one who controls the flow of information and watches those who venture too deep into restricted areas like the Hadal Black Site. Chapter 10: Why are we still afraid of NOLI? Why, after nearly 20 years, does the story of a black figure wearing a star-shaped hat still terrify millions? The answer lies in the nature of the digital world itself. NOLI represents digital decay. We like to believe that everything on the internet is permanent, but Roblox teaches the opposite. Accounts get deleted, games shut down, friends go offline, forever. NOLI is what remains after deletion. He is the emptiness that fills the space where data used to exist. When you enter an old, abandoned place with 0 players, where the only sound is the faint wind from Roblox's 2008 sound library, you instinctively look around. You're not afraid of hackers. You're afraid of him, the one who reminds you that your account is just a line of data in a database, something that can be erased at any moment. Epilogue: The Final Warning. Today, NOLI has become a playable character in horror games like Forsaken, and Midnight Horrors. He has become an icon. But true researchers know the truth. The versions we see in games are just shells. The real NOLI is still out there, beyond the visible layers of code. If one day you join your favorite game and notice the colors around you starting to fade, and in the distance you see a figure wearing the tragedy mask and the void star, don't try to take a screenshot. Don't try to type in chat. Just close the game. Because according to the legend, NOLI doesn't steal your skins or your Robux. He steals your presence, leaving behind only a question mark and silence. The void is always hungry, and today, it's watching you. If you want to hear more creepy Roblox stories and mysteries like this, make sure to subscribe, leave a like, and share your ideas in the comments. I might turn your story into the next investigation.